Today, on Wildlife Nation, Expedition Florida, we'll soar over Lake Okeechobee and explore the incredible story of the majestic snail kite, a remarkable bird of prey dependent on apple snails for survival.
The kites are all around us, and they are not shy.
Then we'll follow one incredible creature's journey from rehab to release.
Come on, buddy. It's all you. It's a big world out there.
I'm Jeff Corwin. Wildlife Nation is dedicated to conserving the natural wonders of North America. And now we're teaming up with the Miccosukee tribe of Indians of Florida to safeguard the vibrant wilderness of the Sunshine State. We'll explore this region's diverse landscapes and extraordinary creatures as we work alongside the passionate conservationists dedicated to protecting them. This is Wildlife Nation, Expedition Florida. Today, we begin in the River of Grass, the vast Florida Everglades.
My friends, we're heading into the heart of the Miccosukee Everglades with our incredible team from Miccosukee Fish and Wildlife. The problem is, it appears we're moving at a snail's pace.
We have a really important habitat in front of us here.
So, why is this a good place for what we want to do?
This is a good place because it's going to create a refuge here as the water starts going down.
So, we should target this?
Yes, let's do it.
All right, let's do it.
Hey, Jeff, look what we found here.
Wow. Are those eggs?
Yep, those are the eggs.
Those are the eggs of the species we're about to reintroduce. Very exciting to see because these eggs are from a species that is critical to the functioning of this environment.
This unique wetland, a mosaic of marshes, swamps, and upland hammocks, has been grappling with challenges like pollution, fluctuating water levels, and invasive species. But amidst these struggles, a glimmer of hope shines through. The Miccosukee tribe of Indians of Florida has embarked on an ambitious project to revive the fundamental building blocks of life in this incredible ecosystem. And that includes some of the smallest inhabitants. Here in the Everglades, apple snails are more than just slow movers. They are vital for maintaining ecological balance. This unique aquacultural cultivating process is a marvel of precision and care. It starts with creating a controlled environment that mimics the snail's natural habitat, complete with aquatic plants and clean water. The apple snails lay their eggs, and in just a few weeks, tiny little hatchlings emerge. It's a delicate dance to ensure each apple snail thrives.
So where do we want to do our reintroduction?
Well, this seems like a perfect place for it, given the evidence we've just found.
So we have hundreds and hundreds of apple snails. These are kind of like teenage apple snails right here.
They are.
John, how old would these snails be?
These are about 2 to 3 months old.
And how many do we have to release?
Probably about 500-600.
500 or 600 individual apple snails. We look at this amazing, vibrant ecosystem. So many incredible creatures. Panther, alligators, all manner of birds. But the apple snail is just as important as all of them.
Very true.
What makes it so special?
Because these are a keystone species. They're one of our many building blocks here in the Everglades. They provide critical food for a lot of wading birds, as well as other species.
So dozens and dozens of species, Craig, are dependent for their survival on this little gastropod.
Unfortunately, they are declining in numbers.
Why?
We're not sure exactly why, but we think maybe the management of the water. They'll crawl out the water and lay their eggs above the water, and if the manipulation of the water rises the water above the eggs, then they die. And the apple snails only live 1 year.
So this species has 1 year to fulfill its biological journey. It emerges from this tiny little egg, about 2+ weeks of growing, and then it begins to feast on all the vegetation, and then they get quite large. They're called apple snails because they're the size of a small apple.
Yeah.
And then they become a vital resource for dozens and dozens of species. Hector, for members of the Miccosukee community, why is this project important?
Well, why is it important? Because this small snail, well, a lot of animals depend on it, and without it, the ecosystem of the Everglades would fall apart. And for us, that's terrible. And we need this as much as any animal out here.
After carefully acclimating them to their new aquatic surroundings, we gently release these tiny apple snails back into the wild, a crucial step in restoring the natural ecosystem.
In about 3 or 4 months, the snail will be about this big, and they'll disperse.
Oh, they'll disperse through this wetland system that we're standing in.
It seems like somewhat of a rudimentary activity to dump a handful of snails into a swamp. But this is very important conservation work because these snails are critical to Everglades restoration. In fact, there is one species living in this ecosystem forever dependent on its survival on these amazing snails.
Coming up, we're looking to the skies over Lake Okeechobee to track the stunning snail kite.
Well, this is awesome. Welcome to Lake Okeechobee. This is one of the largest lakes in Florida. We are surrounded by this amazing wetland habitat. It's home to all sorts of creatures, unique animals to Florida. But there's one species in particular, one of the most beautiful birds in North America we've come to discover, and that is, Rob?
The snail kite.
The snail kite. This is Rob Fletcher. He's a biologist. He's a professor with the University of Florida in Gainesville. And this is Megan. She's working on her PhD. We've been working with the Miccosukee in their very important project to restore the population of apple snails that live in wetland habitat like this. We also know everything in Florida, ecosystems, species are somehow connected. And in this case, with the apple snails, they are the single most important resource for snail kites.
That's right, Jeff. So over 99% of their diet are apple snails. And so one of the big reasons why snail kites decline or increase is based on the status of apple snails.
For our mission, what's our focus?
Well, today we're trying to understand just how many snail kites are in this area right now and how well they're doing foraging. We're also going to set up some new research where we're going to try to attract snail kites to areas that we think are really good for them.
And Megan, that's where you come in.
Yes. So these are some 3D printed snail kite decoys, and we're gonna put them out in combination with some snail kite calls to try to attract the snail kites to some restored pieces of wetland.
In order to do that, we need to find some snail kites. Let's go do it.
Let's go.
All right.
We glide through this unique wetland in search of the elusive snail kite, a bird of prey once teetering on the brink of extinction. And we may have just found a clue to their comeback story.
So this cluster of aquatic vegetation is called duck potato. They call it duck potato because it has these little sort of flowery fruiting bodies up there that kind of look like potatoes. But what's really neat about it is that they will shoot up and rise, and it's a perfect substrate for apple snails to lay their eggs. And if you look, we can see about a half a dozen of egg clusters. But the thing is, Rob, these aren't the native apple snails.
No, these are the non-native apple snails, Jeff. Pomacia maculata is the scientific name, and they're from South America.
So how did they get here?
We do think that they were probably released in the aquarium trade in Florida.
So this is a shell of an exotic apple snail from South America. And you can see they're significantly bigger.
Yes, they can be 2 to 5 times bigger than the native apple snails.
The invasive apple snail's eggs are numerous with clutches of up to 2,000. Once established, these invasive apple snails greatly alter the entire wetland ecosystem, particularly impacting plant communities and nutrient cycling.
And that is kind of like the perfect storm for outcompeting a native species, isn't it?
It sure is. And in fact, when we go out and do surveys of apple snails, we can see densities that are much, much greater than we would ever see with native apple snails.
So it can have an incredibly catastrophic effect on an ecosystem like this. But there's an upside.
There is.
And what's that upside?
Well, snail kites, which are, as we've said, are endangered, they will readily eat these non-native snails. And so Over time, we've seen more and more snail kites eating non-native snails, and that's helped bring the population back.
2 decades ago, we were looking at 700, give or take, snail kites. Today, we have just under 3,000. And that edge for survival very well may have come from this invasive species, which is kind of a plus I don't think folks were originally considering.
No, everyone was quite surprised.
We continue our search for snail kites. And up next, we get an up-close look at this skilled snail predator. We're on a critical conservation mission at vast Lake Okeechobee. Alongside University of Florida scientist Dr. Rob Fletcher and Megan Beatty, we're conducting a survey of the gorgeous snail kite. This majestic bird of prey, once on the brink of extinction, is deeply reliant on the apple snail for survival. The good news is we're now observing an upswing in their numbers, a testament to both conservation efforts and, surprisingly, an invasive apple snail species from South America. The invasive snail has supplemented the snail kite's diet, but could be devastating for the wetland ecosystem once established.
The kites are all around us, and they are not shy.
No, not at all, Jeff. They can come right up to you and forage right in front of you, like this snail kite right here that's flying by. He's doing what we call course hunting right now.
Look at that. And of course, he's hunting for snails because that's just about all he's going to eat. He is an obligatory specialist. That's it.
He's as specialized as they come.
Now, a snail has perfect defense. It's basically armored, and it can totally seal up.
Yes.
How does a snail kite get at the delicious snail on the inside?
Well, it's not easy to eat a snail. I mean, that's why there's not too many species that specialize exclusively on snails like snail kites. But what a snail kite has to do is it'll catch this snail right at the surface of the water with its talons, but it can't finish consuming that snail until it gets back to a perch. Once it gets to the perch, it has the tall order of trying to open this lid with its mandible.
So Jeff, this is also what we're looking for this experiment that we're working on.
So the way these animals are being very social together, you're studying that, and how are we going to do that?
So we're going to put out these decoys to try to attract them to good breeding and foraging habitat.
Should we give it a try?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's do it.
Megan and I get to work setting up the decoys.
We've got the male and the female.
Megan collaborates with the museum and a 3D lab to scan and print the decoys from a snail kite specimen.
So we're going to set back a little bit, give these beautiful decoys some space, and see if we can draw in some snail kites.
Sounds great.
The trick to selling our pseudo snail kites is a speaker box which plays a variety of calls from these fascinating birds.
They're definitely interested.
That's a male, and he's very interested.
This very unique technique could help introduce new snail kites to restored tracts of wetlands, thus expanding their range and numbers.
We know that there's several wetlands in Florida where the conditions look good. We know there's snails, we know there's potential areas for nesting, and there's no snail kites. And the question is can something like this help snail kites colonize these areas?
It's interesting. If you look at it historically, we're talking earlier about newspaper articles way back in the day in the 1940s, talking about great concerns for the ivory-billed woodpecker and for the California condor and for these incredible snail kites. The sun has set on likely has set on the ivory-billed woodpecker. There's only 300 to 400 California condors left, showing signs of promise, but lots of challenges. But these birds have gone from what might have been estimated 100 individuals 70, 80 years ago to now almost 3,000. They do have that yearning to survive.
Yes, there's a real struggle for their survival and their persistence in Florida. More than any other bird, the snail kite exemplifies a healthy wetland ecosystem.
If you can provide this snail kite with what she needs to survive, you've opened up that parasol. They need a thriving, healthy wetland ecosystem. So does everything else here, from fish to gators to other bird species to bobcats. So just saving this species alone, you open the door for other species to thrive.
Yep.
Up ahead, we help a wounded pelican regain its wings. We've been on an inspiring journey of conservation with the Miccosukee tribe of Indians of Florida. This mission is a testament to the tribe's deep understanding and respect for nature, particularly the river of grass. And this delicate balance is not just confined to Florida's wetlands, but extends to the coastal regions. That's where one very important wildlife center in Miami comes to play.
Well, this is very exciting. So we have a very special patient here at the Pelican Harbor Seabird Station. Their mission to save all sorts of wildlife, but they have a big focus on coastal bird species. Dr. Schneider, even big complex critters like pelicans are impacted by these conservation challenges.
Absolutely. I mean, our pelican are fish eaters, and they're out there diving and surviving on the fish, and the fish are impacted by the water and the algae and everything that they're finding, so it's all interconnected.
And we have this beautiful pelican, so let's see what's going on. We look at them as sort of comical, clowny, clumsy creature, but they are acrobats in the sky and in the water. First of all, they've got exquisite vision. So they use those amazing eyes to peer through the glare of the water, see a small school of pilchards, and then at breakneck speed, they dive down, crash through the water. But what's most amazing about a pelican is its beak. This pouch is incredibly elastic. So when he reaches down and he gulps, it functions almost like a fishing net. And it can hold a couple of gallons of water, and then it will sieve and squeeze that water out. And this is incredibly dynamic, it's very elastic, and it has some incredible rejuvenative qualities, doesn't it?
They heal amazingly well. In fact, if they're torn, as long as it's the size of a quarter or less, it'll heal by itself.
What's the backstory of this pelican?
A Good Samaritan found him limping, and he came to us to be examined and figure out why he was limping and why they were able to catch him to get him here.
Awesome. So what do we need to do?
Well, we're going to do a full exam
Okay.
from bill to toe.
We begin with the eyes, the bill, the mouth, and the gorgeous wings.
So we're feeling to make sure there's no lumps, bumps, swelling.
Then the body condition.
We can feel that right there, the pectoral muscles, right?
Yep.
We can feel that if it feels nice and plump.
Followed with the leg and the feet.
Some of our pelicans migrate from up north and even have old frostbite injuries.
Really?
Yep. And if you look right here,
Right.
you can see that this is swollen and there's some scabbing here.
Right.
So this is probably why our bird was limping.
What do you think caused this injury?
Most of our birds come in with old hook and line injuries. So maybe he had a hook and somebody pulled it out and then it left either infection or scar tissue inside.
Pelicans, hooks, a big problem. Some animals, they say, just cut the line, let it go. Not with pelicans, because that animal will die with the hook inside it.
And we always say, reel it in and get it to us. Do not cut the line.
Since discarded fishing line and hooks are such a huge risk to pelicans, we give the bird an x-ray to confirm he hasn't ingested any hooks. And next in our battery of tests, we take a blood sample.
So there we go. We have our results. What does it say?
Well, it basically tells us that everything is in normal range. So liver, kidney function good, electrolytes and proteins are all normal.
Thankfully, our pelican is looking well in the mend. So we perform a minor laser treatment on its foot to help the healing process.
Really, the salt water is going to help that tremendously, but this will give him a little bonus treatment before he goes.
All right, let's get that federal band on.
All right.
A little bling for this pelican.
Yes. So if anyone is able to read that in the wild, they can report it and they'll ping us to know where this pelican's been, if he's hanging out in Florida or not, and he has that for the rest of his life.
Awesome. It's on just right, not too loose, not too tight. And this bird is ready to go.
I'm back with the dedicated team at Pelican Harbor Seabird Station to release this very special and lucky brown pelican back into the wild.
We know that this animal was in serious trouble, but now this amazing bird is ready to go home. Come on, buddy. For me, this reminds us that despite all the challenges that wild Florida faces, the loss of habitat, water quality issues, invasive species, there is hope. And when we try, from the land of the Miccosukee to the beautiful coast of Miami, we can restore not just the wildlife, but ourselves. Do you guys want a Kleenex? Because usually... All right. Say goodbye to our pelican. It's all you. It's a big world out there. You can do it. You've got some buddies right there, and they're going to teach you how to fish. Yep. There he goes!